Hello, dear friends. I hope you're doing really well. Thank you to all who are have been waiting for this live to happen. I really appreciate you, and your questions and comments are welcome below. So in this video, we're going to talk about why we see people push off their eating and the maybe unintended consequences that happens to people's recovery and the decisions we've got to make about that. So, and that's a lot of information, but that's what we're speaking on this week. So the reasons I see people push off their eating is because sometimes they'll have a part inside that kind of like legitimizes and basically kind of convinces us that that is the way to deal with like lack of hunger cues, or maybe to make up for eating that happened yesterday that there's conflict about inside, right? So, let's say that you actually... let's say that you're at a stage of recovery where your signals of hunger and fullness aren't really that clear, whether that's from you just stopped dieting or just a lot of dissociation over maybe months, years, and decades of just being disembodied, like not in your body. And so when you start eating more food again, especially in cases where there has been a calorie deficit, for whatever reason, regardless of your body size, if you've been eating, whether it's half of what you need or maybe quote unquote only eating 15% less than you should be eating, it doesn't matter. Your body is going to, via that lack of calories and nutrition, is going to signal to your other body systems to slow everything down. Okay. And I know that's really kind of a generic way of saying that, but like if you don't have minerals and vitamins and protein and fat and carbs for the functions you need, you can't run your body system. So the body systems need to slow down. So you're not going to have as normative digestion, your thinking, your cognitive skills are going to slow down, your emotional regulation is going to slow down. Social skills, all the things, right? Everything, reproductive functioning, everything has to slow down because there's just not as much fuel available. And so to deal with that lack of hunger, sometimes there be parts in us that legitimize the pushing off the meal, or like, I don't really feel that hungry, so I just didn't eat breakfast, or I didn't really feel hungry because of what I ate yesterday. Because maybe yesterday you actually did a really awesome job of mechanical eating, and there's parts inside that think that is a threat, because then you might gain weight. And so round and round the hoop and the circle you go of whack-a-mole, of trying to suppress whatever it is inside we're trying to suppress, right? So I know that in our authentic self, like our really, really core self, isn't trying to self-sabotage. It's just this other stuff in here that feels threatened, because when we eat food, we do feel more feelings. We do get more in touch with conflicts inside and things we know we need to deal with, but it's hard to face because it feels hard. It's not necessarily a threat to feel these feelings, but it just feels really hard to do. And maybe we've spent decades figuring out ways to adapt to not dealing with that because we just didn't know how back then, right? So I think there are parts inside of us that know that meal pushing, we might not know this consciously, but unconsciously, there are parts in us that know that like we're pushing off eating, pushing off taking care. We can apply this to anything, by the way. Pushing off sleep, pushing off taking our vitamins, pushing off making that appointment for nutrition counseling or physical therapy, or whatever we know we need to be doing to build our capacity, rebuild our body, and pursue health. We push those things off because some part of us unconsciously knows that if we start down this path, these other parts that felt like they needed all this outer distraction here, it feels like a threat because, well, what happens if this is all seen? Will I be abandoned again? Will I get rejected? Will I get in trouble? Will I be too overwhelmed? Whatever. And so if we don't take the time to be curious about, I'll say, the meal pushing, let's say, when you know good and well that you need to eat solid breakfast, within an hour or so of getting up, to get these minerals in your system going and to get your body starting to trust you that you're going to take care of it, it's, there are going to be parts when you feel like it's not necessary. You've survived long enough with not enough food. What if I binge tomorrow or binge later tonight? So you better not eat, at least I can cut off some of this. All that does is just perpetuate the cycle of threat response and abandonment and all that. So those are the reasons why we do it. And there's hundreds more I just haven't articulated. So what do we do about it? I think that we have to do some acceptance work around right now. My interoceptive awareness isn't probably in peak operating condition. So I need to practice. And part of that practice is eating every 3 to 4 hours, probably minimum, so that you can teach your body that food is coming and there's a competent caretaker that's looking out and got your back. And I know that sounds like it's who are we talking to here? It could be the parts of you that were put on a diet when you were a kid. It could be, or even 2 years ago, it could be just parts that felt like no one listened and cared and did the hard thing, put their stuff aside and did the hard thing for them, whatever it was. But you are teaching your insides that you understand that, yeah, we're not a great intuitive eater right now, but it's okay. We're going to do this mechanical eating until we get to the place where we can do a hybrid of that. And then until we get to the place where it's like food is pretty hunger fullness based and pretty natural. And along the way, you also might be working through some health conditions because sometimes at a certain time in our life, we are paying more attention to certain kinds of things. And they're not mutually exclusive. They have to be separated. But there has to be a lot of communication for motive for whatever it is we're doing. If there's no clear communication of the motive of having more fiber to your insides, parts of you might perceive that as a diet and just, no, I'm not doing it. Not doing it. I feel controlled. And then your now self is like, well, I feel like I need the fiber to help my GI tract. So you got this conflict. So instead of doing this, we're going to have to do this. Oh, I see you're pretty worried about this health and nutrition change. What does that mean inside if you were to do that? You have to have these conversations. If not, all you're doing is kind of white knuckling, doing the right thing, and then, putting a lot of pressure on your nervous system to be in this fighting kind of mode. And then eventually when you get physically tired, emotionally tired, something else is a higher, like you get a flat tire, all that's out the window, right? And then you're just doing maybe things you don't want to be doing, or you're doing things that maybe you do want to be doing, but in a very critical, punitive kind of way, judging yourself and not eating the fiber. And so then you make yourself eat lots of fiber and then you feel sick, so again, it loops. And so the goal of all this is to slow down and start to understand the function of the meal pushing. Get really clear of how come this is happening, what part of you feels like that's the right thing to do or is safe. Maybe you're just doing it out of habit, and it could be that's as deep as it is. And if you start mechanically eating and you go through, several weeks or months of getting used to eating more food and feeling more full, but you start to see that a lot of the food noise is going away. You start to see that a lot of the stress about not getting fed is starting to go away. Then you start to think, oh, that's all I needed to do was to take that risk. So I know it's different for everyone. In future videos, and this coming, I know I'm doing this video here in late October 2025, so fall. I'm going to be doing a lot of getting to know some of these, I guess, insiders that have a lot of in chargeness around food behaviors, basically. Because if we don't befriend this stuff, we just end up feeling like we're not getting anywhere. Okay, so there's no reason to perform recovery. Let's embody it by it feeling safer for all of it to land inside. So that's what you can look forward to. I will see you all in the next video and have a great one. Bye for now.